we want to remember all those that are in Ukraine right now. I just daytime has come, and man, what a harrowing night they must have had if they got any sleep at all. Not only that, but I kind of feel sorry for many of those young boys that Russia forced to sign contracts to go and fight, and without even letting their parents know. And they don't really want to be there. But, Putin has this thing on his mind about what he wants Russia to be and how he wants to include Ukraine. And he's got a little window of opportunity because he saw that with what was going on in our government, in our country. Abraham Lincoln said it, Jesus, a house divided cannot stand. And we're not we are a very divided nation, and we're not united, and it's mainly because of the current administration. As much as they wanted to blame the other, it's not the case. Both sides have problems, but it's really sad what's going on. We pray for them. I'm grieved. I think about it all the time. There's a lot of missionaries there, a lot of families, business people, not just Ukrainians that are there, a lot of foreigners there. Plus, what goes on there is going to affect Finland, Sweden, I'm sure all those Eastern European countries, and even Western, and affect the rest of the world. So a lot of Christians tend to be very passive. Oh, well, this is going to happen. We're headed towards there, and there's nothing you can do about it. That is not true. Okay? If a lot of them had that attitude when World War I came and World War II. But there are people that really believe that God wants us to stand up for what is right and be a restrainer, and I'm a firm believer of that. Nobody knows when Jesus is going to return, but until he does, we have a responsibility to promote God and his word, as he says, and Jesus says, all authority on heaven and earth is given to me. Go and make disciples of all nations. And he's given us that command. To not do that, you have to have a pretty good excuse. I don't know if that's going to wash when you stand before God someday. But anyway, here's the situation right now today. I wanted to bring this message. I wasn't going to do it till Monday, but I thought, well, this will be of encouragement. What we're going to talk about here. It's in John chapter 6. And the situation is this. Jesus had already turned water into wine. He's already healed a nobleman's son. He already raised this guy that had been sick for 38 years. Plus, he did a number of other miracles and stuff that are not recorded in the book of John. John didn't record everything he did. He recorded selected events he did. In any case, by now, he's pretty well known. Okay, so wherever Jesus shows up, guess who's coming? The crowd. All the curiosity seekers. All the people that will show up because they want to see miracles. They want to see people that have been lame walking, people that have been, dumb speaking, people that haven't been able to hear hearing. They want to see these miracles. So you got this massive crowd that shows up, and says this. And if you want to turn with me in John chapter 6 right now, and I'm going to read some of it, and we'll talk about it, then I'm going to show how encouraging this message is. Okay. Sometime after this is after he had been there with that lame man at the pool of Bethsaida, and he had healed him on the Sabbath. It says, sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee. That's up north of Jerusalem. Is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great crowd, and pay real close to that, people followed him because they saw the miraculous signs he had performed on the sick. Then Jesus went up on the hillside and sat down with his disciples, and the Jewish Passover feast was near. Okay, so that means the Jews were coming from all over the place. So we're talking about a massive, massive crowd here. And if you could just picture the scene, Jesus is up on a hill and he's sitting up towards the top, and all these people are down below. And so in verse 5, when Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, and look at what he's going to do. Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? And we got a problem here, okay? Jesus is kind of feeling responsible because he's the attraction. These people are coming out to see him. And here's all these people, probably a lot of poor people, a lot of working class, even rich people and different kinds of people. And they are all there to see him. You know, and they didn't have a 7-Eleven right there where they could run and get something to eat. Okay, they're out there in the countryside, and he says to him, where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? He asked this, and he asked this only to Philip to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Okay, so what does Philip do? Okay, you're there, Jesus asks you, and you got all these thousands of people. By the way, it wasn't 5,000 people. It just says it was 5,000 men. They had wives and children. And I'm sure, other relatives. So you can easily assume that it was 20, 30,000, maybe even more people there sitting there. And you're looking at all these people and you know they're there because they came to listen to you. How are you going to feed them? And so Philip answered him and said, this is Philip's idea, his suggestion. He says, listen, 8-month wages would not buy enough bread for each one to have even a bite. That's a lot of money back in then. So I think in some of your other translations, 200 denarius. I think each denarius is a day's wage. And another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up and he gives a suggestion. Here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far are they going to go? At least he had a practical suggestion. Okay? The other disciples kind of pessimistic. Look, even if we had money, where are you going to get all this food to feed all these people? So in other words, what Jesus asked them to do and to provide an answer for was an impossibility. God ever put you in that spot? You don't know what you're going to do. No fault of your own, or even if it was your fault, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah, I've been in that situation a lot. I'm kind of in that situation right now. I don't have any retirement. I don't have any life savings or anything like that. I opted out of Social Security many years ago while I was in ministry, so I get minimum of that. So I'm living on savings, and that's starting to go off with what I have. And so I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know. I can't come up with a feasible idea at this time. I can think of a lot of different things and things that I'd be willing to do, but I know that God will take care of me somehow. He's going to make a way, whether it be through a job or whether it be through ministry, whether it be through a gift. I don't know. Okay. Well, God often does that to us purposely. When I was in seminary and all these Ivy League guys were coming and they had all the money in the world, invariably the first year, almost every one of them, in some way or another, lost it all. Because they not only needed to learn the word, but they needed to learn how to operate in faith. Okay? And how to let the word work in their life on a daily basis in a very practical way. They got a problem. Okay? They got a catering problem. Okay? how are you going to feed all these thousands of people that are here? And I'm sure they're tired and weary, and there's babies crying and kids running, and Mom, get me something to eat. I'm thirsty, you know. And they came to see Jesus. And so Jesus tells them, Jesus says to them, after Simon Peter had told them that there was a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, he says to him, hey, have the people sit down. There was plenty of grass in that place, and the men sat down, about 5,000 of them, and that's just counting the men, not the women and the children. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted, and he did the same with the fish. Now, let me ask you something. I was thinking about this last night. I'm laying there just mulling over the scenario. Who do you think the most interesting character in this passage is? Think for a minute while I drink a little sip of Coke. Oh, man, that's good. Who do you think's the most interesting character? I'll tell you who I think it is. I think it's that little boy that had the little loaves and the fishes. I can just see his eyes when he's seeing Jesus. He's the one that brought him. He knew where he got those from. As Jesus keeps handing out bread after another and fish after another, and I'm not talking about little sardines. I'm talking about some good sized food for these people to be feeling for, they're hungry, and for enough food to be left over. Man, this is an ultimate banquet. But that little boy I bet he never forgot that for the rest of his life. I bet he told the story over and over and over again. I know if I was that little boy, I'd have followed Jesus from there on out, and which a lot of people did. Okay, so I thought he was the most interesting character in this. You could probably write a story if you're creative and got a lot of imagination about the little boy that came and brought the loaves and the fishes to Jesus. Okay, so Jesus had the people sit down, and he distributes all this food to them. When they had all had enough to eat, he said to the disciples, gather the pieces that are left, let nothing be wasted. Now, here's why I think this message is so encouraging. Because there wasn't any reasonable, logical way to feed them. How are you going to do that? I've been hungry before. I remember, never forget a time I was in Southern California. I don't know if I've shared this story before. And I was in Thousand Palms, California. I was working on a golf course, and it was really hot. And I didn't have any money, and I had nothing to eat, and we had worked all hard. It's hard work on the golf course. And they had a lot of illegal Hispanics working on the golf course. And they were hard workers and good people, too. And I'm sitting there at lunchtime, and we're sitting under this palm tree, date trees. And they're eating their tacos, and I'm just kind of sitting there, not doing anything, just kind of looking around. And they noticed right away that I didn't have anything to eat. And they offered me their tacos, 3 of them. One offered to one, I had 3 tacos. And I've never forgotten, how was I going to eat that day? And God has done that to me so many times. One time I was so hungry I couldn't, I had no money. I had a dime. I had 1 dime in my pocket. I was going to go call Miss Elsie collect. And I put the dime in the telephone. Back in those days, the older folks know about this. In a telephone booth, you put a dime in and you dial for the operator. And I like to make a collect call. Dr. Elsie Fix, this is Manny Martinez. And see if she'll take So as I put the dime in, all of a sudden, all this money came flowing out like a slot machine. And I rationalized in my mind, as sinful as I was in those days, that, well, all the money that I had lost in the phone booth before is now paying me back. Next thing I know, I had my pockets full of change. Man, what do you think I did? I went and got me. I was right close to the store. Went and got me something to eat. So, but God has done that to me so many times. There was no logical way and feasible way to feed all those people. And so the test of faith is this: God is going to take care of you. He's never going to do it the same way. He always does it different, so you know he did it. Okay? And for you to try to figure it out, it's just will drive you nuts. How did I end up back in this apartment? I shouldn't even be here. I don't know where I'm going to be a year from now. You know I got enough to keep me by, a little bit this year. And that's it. I don't know where I'm going to go. So, but I know God will take care of me. And that's what he was doing. He was testing their faith. And he says, let nothing be wasted. So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. And after the people saw the miraculous sign that Jesus did, they began to say, surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world. And Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, see, they still didn't get it, withdrew again into the hills by himself. See, the Jews were expecting the Messiah to come as a king, not as a servant. And that's why in the Old Testament you have a lot of double messianic prophecies. But you got to see them both, and you got to separate the two. Okay, he comes both ways. He already came as a servant, and then he's going to come as a king after the tribulation. And so, as we're going through the book of John, he is establishing his identity, who he is. He's God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That he was equal with God. And only God can feed 20, 30,000 with no stores around. Okay? When all those people were wandering in the desert, God floated down from heaven tortillas. Okay? When they got sick of that, he gave them some meat, some carne. But they got that out of complaint, so they were sick of that. They should have been satisfied with the tortillas that God was giving them. By the way, that's how we know in heaven that they're going to have Mexican food, right? But listen, there's people in Ukraine right now. They're needing, I'm sure, as you're praying, God is going to minister to their needs in miraculous ways that cannot be explained humanly, scientifically, economically. You even as one of the disciples tried to suggest, well, look, we got 5 barley loaves and a couple of fishes. He was trying to at least propose some type of economic proposition to Jesus. This isn't going to be enough. And Jesus, hey, listen, I got this covered. He's going to take care of you. He's going to take care of me. Jesus says in Matthew, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things that the Gentiles so eagerly worry and get themselves all in a fuss about and everything will come to you. He says, you trust me, you put your faith in me. Don't tell me how to do it. I got it covered. You just trust me. In Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, which I go to sleep with almost every night, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will establish your path. Okay? God's got a banquet prepared for you, and he has one prepared for me. Quit seeking the things that don't matter and start seeking Him. Let Him surprise you. Okay, I think you'll be glad you did. And meanwhile, we'll stay in prayer for those people in Ukraine, especially for the children that don't understand what's going on. A lot of the older people, I saw an old lady the other day, she had gone through the Holocaust. She was that old. She's now going to the Holocaust with the Germans, now got to go through it again with the Russians. You know, so she suffered quite a bit. And there's a purpose for suffering in the Christian life. And Jesus said, through many trials and tribulation will we enter into the kingdom of heaven. And God has a reason, but if we go through the trial, you know what? He goes with us. And He makes a way for us. I believe that. I want you to believe that too. You have a good evening. God bless you all.